Hi, hello, and welcome back to the HII Method. My name is Jen Hatz. I'm the host of the HII Method podcast and also the founder of the HII Method, a holistic, integrative, and innovative approach to assessing and optimizing human health, well-being, and performance. And I am partnered with Neuroforce One, a human performance company that has been training champions for years. And they offer assessments and training both in their facility as well as remote options available. And I wanted to pose a question to begin today's episode about anything that you have ever wondered when it comes to your perception of the world around you and how that might differ from someone else's perception of the world around them, and really what it means to have a difference of perception. So the reason why I pose that question, this is actually a topic that I love just in general. The fact that we live with our own perception of the world, our own perspective of the world. But that perception that we have of the world and of ourselves and of life itself is completely shaped, unique to us and to our experiences over time. And so the reason why I'm actually bringing this up to begin with, over the weekend, I went hiking. I love going hiking on the weekends. It is like the perfect getaway that actually is grounding. You know, it's like you're not actually escaping reality, you're going to reality. So I love going, leaving the city for the weekends and going hiking. And while I was hiking, I was, as unusual as it sounds, I was taking out my camera and, taking video of what I was seeing. Normally, I don't do that all the time. I like to be in the moment and experience what it is that I'm doing out there in reality, right? But this past weekend, I happened to take out my phone and start filming some of what I was seeing. And a lot of it was just the fact that it's fall right now, so all the leaves are changing colors, and it's just beautiful. And as I was capturing everything through the camera of the phone, little side note, so the camera on my phone actually has a crack, or the screen has a crack right across the camera. So whatever I capture on the camera tends to look a little different than what it would look like normally in real life, just looking at something with the naked eye. And so the cool thing about that, though, is that because there is this slight alteration in the camera, it's capturing things that I wouldn't otherwise see with the naked eye, right? And so when I'm looking at the videos afterwards, I'm like, man, all of a sudden the camera, just the slightest change of angle on the camera, and it's capturing different wavelengths, different colors, different, so like the sun coming through the trees was casting out this entire spectrum, the entire rainbow spectrum, all of those wavelengths, and the camera is capturing this. But this is something that my naked eye can't see in real time. I have to look at it through the camera, which happens to be a broken camera, in order to see these wavelengths that are there. They exist. But the fact that they exist doesn't mean that I can always see them. I have to have, in this case, a tool or a catalyst to be able to open my perception of what it is that is actually there. And so experiencing this over the weekend and seeing this, and just it brings me back to the fact that perception itself is something that is malleable. It's something that is shaped, and it's something that we are continually shaping. But it's the coolest concept, I think, of, well, really not even a concept, it's the coolest function of how our brains work. And so to take that example of what I just experienced over the weekend and to put it into the most real life context of how your body functions and how your brain functions and how the two combine in order to create the experience that you have of life and of what it is that you see and feel and know in life, and how that's happening really through your body. So your body has these sensory organs that are picking up this sensory input at all times. And this sensory input could be, in this case, like wavelengths, that my eyes are the sensory organs that are picking up these wavelengths. They're just collecting this data that is already out there. Same thing with your ears and your skin, all of those tactile sensations, your taste within your mouth, your tongue and your taste buds, and your ability to experience taste. So if you think of your five senses, And the organs that make up those senses, so those sensory organs, are specifically picking up this stimuli around you, this sensory input that is always there at all times, and you're just absorbing it all day long, no matter whether you are consciously aware of it or just subconsciously going through your life, you are still picking up all of that sensory input. And all of this data collection that is happening all throughout the day, your brain then is collecting all this data through all these different sensory organs, and it starts to organize and catalog what it is that it's receiving. And it tries to make sense of these different senses, right? Oh, that's so funny. I just thought of that now. But so your brain is trying to organize and make sense of what it is that it is receiving, what this sensory input actually means. And your brain trying to attach a meaning to it comes from your brain kind of filing through your memory bank. So whatever you have memories stored up, different associations, different things you have learned, things that you have been taught, things that have been reinforced to you over and over throughout your life, especially starting from when you were just a brand new baby out there in the world. Not necessarily out there in the world. You're just a brand new baby in the world, right? You're not yet out there. But so all of that time, your entire life, you are taught and you're learning and you're being reinforced all of these different associations that you make with this input around you. And so your brain then starts to file back. It kind of, does a little moonwalking backwards through your memories to try to identify where you've built an association at some point in time to this thing that you're maybe seeing or hearing or experiencing in some way. And so then your brain builds that bridge and makes that connection and says, oh, okay, that's the color blue. Right? So then you understand, you recognize as the conscious human being that you're looking at something that is the color blue. And that association, that connection that you just made, the fact that you're looking at something that is the color blue, it's because that was taught and reinforced to you over and over and over again, that when your eyes, when the organs that are picking up that wavelength, when they collect that data and your brain is trying to make sense of it, you have been taught repeatedly from an outside source that's the color blue. That's the color blue. And this is happening when you're obviously like very, very young and you're first absorbing the world around you. You're first learning. They say that a young brain is like a sponge, and it is. It's constantly absorbing the sensory input, and it's because of different points around, different influences around you that are reinforcing the association for you to make. So they're teaching you what to think about what it is that you are experiencing. So you are maybe looking at something that is a certain wavelength, and your brain is trying to make sense of it. And it's because of an outside opinion, an outside influence telling you what to make sense of it, that you then understand it as such. You then understand it as the color blue, and that will forever be a belief that you hold, that when you are looking at something that is that wavelength, that is the color blue. So I say all of that to emphasize the impact of what an outside influence has on you. Because all you are doing is absorbing input all day long. You're taking in data from a variety of different sources through all of your sensory organs. So your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your skin, everything is picking up all of this sensory input, and your brain has to organize it and make sense of it in whatever way it can. It has to build those associations in order for you to understand what it is that you are looking at or hearing or experiencing. All of that making sense of things only happens because of an outside influence shaping for you that association, shaping for you that perception that you will then build, and you will then live within that perception of the world. Now, this starts to get real deep when we think back then. So what it is that we have been experiencing from day one, from when we were for lack of a better term, a blank slate, And all of our entire life experience, all of our understanding and perception of the world around us was entirely shaped by outside influences that were purposefully shaping that association for us to make. This does not, I know it sounds immediately like brainwashing, but in a way it is. But as long as those outside influences are knowledgeable about what it is, the associations that they are building, they're intentional about building certain associations for you to understand that is for your highest good and for just the good of the situation itself. That is in itself the learning process. That's how you develop just an understanding of anything. But that can also, as I said with brainwashing, that can also be the biggest downfall to how we operate on a day-to-day basis, because we may have unknowingly had our perception of the world, of ourselves, of others, been shaped in some way that we don't realize, but it happened maybe years ago, maybe decades ago. Maybe it's the end result of generations of that shaping of perception that has now been transplanted into us, and now we view the world in a certain way because we've been taught to do so. And now our sensory organs are picking up sensory input all day long, and because our perception of that, our ability to make sense of that has already been shaped in some way, we are now in some way at a disadvantage of being able to think outside of what it is that we've already been shaped to view it from. I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining it, because in my mind, this is a very big concept that needs to be talked about a lot more. We need to be identifying that much more with a critical eye, really, and with a higher degree of discernment of what the sources of information we are allowing to have that type of an influence over us and over our perception of ourselves and of the world around us and how things work. So there's really I would say a heightened degree, a heightened need for that perception shift. Really, it's taking that intention to open up your perception, to identify the fact that your perception of yourself, for instance, may be very limited because you were unknowingly receiving this guidance to shape your view of the world within a box, within whatever the limitations were of those who were teaching you. And so to be able to, first of all, to take that awareness that, okay, my perception of something about myself may be limited because of something that I experienced, or in some way my perception was shaped by outside influences. And now, by taking that first step of awareness, now you can take the next step towards intentional action. And now you can start to identify what are the influences around me and what is it that they're actually reinforcing for me? What is it that they are actually intending for me to do? What is it that they're guiding me to do? Is there an end outcome that they want me to buy something from them? Or is their intention to actually help to develop me further? And it's starting to ask these questions about the influences around us so that we can take a much more intentional approach to opening up our perception of the world. The reason why we need to open up our perception of the world is because what I started talking about, first of all, was the fact that I was able to, through this broken camera, through this tool that was malfunctioning just slightly, I was able to see things that were there that I otherwise wasn't able to see just from my own naked eye. From my own ability to perceive something was limited. And it wasn't until there was this tool or this catalyst to open up my perspective, my perception of what it was that I was looking at, that then I could see, oh my God, there are wavelengths here that exist right there. And I just wasn't seeing them before. So taking that perspective, I think, of opening our perception, taking the intention to open our perception by first identifying what are the influences around me and what is it exactly that my perception is being shaped, in what ways is my perception being shaped because of these influences around me. And then taking that step to start to acknowledge and maybe address and maybe change some of those influences that you are placing yourself around, right? You do have a choice in which sources of information you are receiving information from. You have a choice on what you consume on a day-to-day basis and who you surround yourself with. These are all forms of influence that are shaping your perception of yourself and the world around you. Now, all of that being said, so I've actually put together an entire educational series that is geared towards you, helping yourself to open that perception that you have of yourself and of the world around you. This is an entire series that is meant to be, hopefully, that positive influence that you need in order to identify maybe where the limitations were that you want to work on, that you no longer want to feel limited by, because you've now had this change of your perception to see that your previous perception being shaped in some way was actually limiting you. And just by taking that awareness, now you're ready to take the next step and start to open up the sources of information that you are actually receiving information from. So start walking through this series of videos that I have posted, and it's built out kind of as a course, but meant to be go at your own pace. Do it whenever you are in the mood to actually be absorbing new information, and you can actually be fully present and put what you're hearing and what you're learning into use and put it into practical application in real time. So it's built out as a video library with a workbook that you work through on your own time. It's there physical in hand so that you can always work on it at any point in time. So this is an entire course, video series, book. I don't know how best to word it so that way it's being comprehended as such, but it's built so that you can open up that perception, so that you can have that positive influence to help encourage you to identify the areas that you need to make changes, and then actually have the sense of direction, being able to put those steps into action and be able to make those changes for yourself. So if you're interested, go ahead and click the link in the show notes, and I will send out more information about that as it comes out. Otherwise, just to wrap up that little story though, so whenever you feel like you have been locked into a situation and you just can't get out of it, you feel like you need to break free from something, there's something that is limiting you or holding you back in some way, maybe you need to leave the city and go hiking somewhere and use a broken camera to open up your perception of just how much is actually out there, that maybe you're not seeing it right now, and maybe you just need that extra tool or that catalyst to help open up your view and to see everything else that is actually out there for you. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.